Hello, this is Mordred Viking, and I'd like to welcome you to this pre-release video for Warhammer 3.
Warriors of Kislev! We have travelled far and fought hard, but at last we have arrived in Khorne's bloody realm. Before us stands the brass citadel, where the Blood God's gatekeeper stands guard. We must call out the fiend and slay him! He rallies his demons for a last desperate defense. Vanquish them with ice and steel! This is the ruined fort, defended by Khorne's lesser thralls. Wipe them out and capture the icon of ruin! This will give me a foothold and grant us supplies to reinforce for the struggle ahead!
Welcome to the survival mode, which Creative Assembly very kindly gave us access to during a digital event. This is a new combat mode, which you will see in the game if you are playing as the good guys, that is Cathay or Kislev, and you're basically taking the fight to the forces of chaos in the realms of chaos, their homelands, I guess you'd call them. In this fight, we are playing as Kislev, led of course by Tsarina Katerina, which is a name I'll never get tired of saying. And we have a number of rather strong soldiers available to us. So first of all, we've got the swordsmen, which are the Zargard. They are heavy infantry, they've got a lot of armour, a lot of staying power, and they are just complete tanks. We've also got a couple of archers. These are the Kossars, who have a decent range. They have a very narrow area of fire, but they're pretty good at what they do. And then finally, we have the Hussars, because of course we do! So the Hussars are charge cavalry. They're not very good at staying in a fight long term, but they are excellent on the charge, just like you are about to see happening right there. So as you may already have guessed, this is all pre-recorded. This is actually me playing. We had full access to the build. We were given basically a couple of hours and told, have fun, have at it. So the objective here is to take out a couple of victory points. You can see that the Winged Hussars right now are riding up to that point over there in the distance and hold it. You then need to survive a couple of waves of attacks and then push on to the next objective once the fires there in the gateway clear. Now, I should mention that I was taking this event far too seriously and just trying to win all of the missions, so you'll notice I spend most of it kind of zoomed out and seeing very much the big picture. I do have a couple of shots towards the end where I start to zoom in and enjoy the artwork for the models themselves, but for the most part this is very much a focus on the gameplay and what is going on. And as we come across some new features which really make this mode stand out, we'll talk about what they are and what they do. So first of all, you can see capture the flag. So we are capturing this point. Once we have taken this point, the game changes a little bit.
It is claimed for the Queen! The icon of ruin is ours, and we have supplies to fortify our position. Use them to construct defensive towers here. We can barricade these bottlenecks. Use the portals to summon fresh troops or heal and upgrade our warriors, using whatever supplies we have left.
And yes, Total War Warhammer 3 suddenly becomes a bit more of an RTS. You can build a couple of buildings. These are towers, which you can see I'm building at the moment. There are 4 different tiers. The first one basically just shoots arrows. The second one shoots arrows a bit faster. The third tier, I think, has like ballista bolts or something like that. And then the fourth tier has magical damage. I thought initially when I was working on this that each one would be like a different damage type. So one would be AoE, one would be rapid shot, one would be just very fast projectiles for chasing down cavalry. That wasn't the case. They are just a tiered system. So level 1 is definitely weaker than level 2, which is weaker than 3, and then 4 is the maximum. The other area of interest are those rather larger hammer zones, and those are basically an area you can set up barricades or even walls. And what you're basically doing there is choosing the kind of fortification. So again, there are 4 different choices for what to build on those locations. First of all, you've got barricades. These are, what are they called? Hang on, let me just check my notes. Yeah, barricades. These are just a simple blocker. That is your bog standard wall. The enemies can smash into it. You can't stand on it. You can shoot over it though, so if you have archers, you can stick them behind the barricade, but it will eventually get destroyed and then the enemy will pour in. The second one is the platform. The platform is not nearly as solid a defense, but you can station ranged units on top of it, and while they're on the platform, they gain a bonus of 20% range. So if you do have a lot of archer units, you can have units on the platform and then a solid line of infantry in front of them, which, by the way, the Zargard are very good at doing. And then we also have the trap. This will debuff enemy units as they come in, reducing their speed and melee attack. And then finally there's the monument, which will buff friendly units. I don't remember exactly what type of things it buffs, but they're pretty strong. So you can see here I'm kind of looking around what the different towers and the different walls can do. That tower there at the very back, that one is one of the tier 4s, shooting magical bolts, doing a ton of damage. That spell that you can just see going off in the distance, that is the Heart of Winter. That is Tsarina Katerina's strongest ability. It is very much kind of an ultimate attack, basically replacing the Vortex, which a lot of other schools of magic have access to. And this would actually seem to be a pretty good time to talk about magic. So Tsarina Katerina does come with the School of Ice, the Law of Ice, which has some really nice abilities. So the first one is a defense debuff. This is a huge, defense buff. It is a huge buff. It will increase the defenses of your units significantly. I think it's like a physical resist of 90% or something ludicrous like that, but it makes them immobile. I did use it at the very beginning of the battle, and it was really quite effective. I do use it a couple of other times, but quite frankly there is so much going on in these battles that I kind of forgot to use magic quite as much as I should have. And that actually kind of brings us on to what is going on here. So earlier on I did talk about the fact that you have to kind of withstand several waves of enemies coming in. That is exactly what is going on here. You can see there in the top there is that percentage. That's how many of the troops you've killed. Then next to that we've got supplies. So as you kill enemy soldiers and as you hold on to these capture points, you generate supplies. You then spend those supplies on getting the towers, the barricades, new troops which you can summon through the portal, which you'll see me doing a little bit later, and also upgrading or healing the troops you already have. So soldiers do have a bronze, silver, gold tier of equipment, so that is weapons and armor and ranged weapons if they are ranged. I don't think I've done that yet, but that is again something that you will see me doing a little bit later on. The other very important thing is healing. So you can immediately drop some supplies onto a unit to restore some of their health, or you can basically you can send them back to Kislev through the portal, which will replenish them more fully, and then you recruit them back again through the portal for, I think, a reduced cost. Exactly the differences between healing immediately and replenishing over time, I'm not entirely sure. Didn't really have time to get into that, but I know that those are options. You can see here on the side that there is a really big wave starting to attack, being held up by my blocker at the moment. I don't think I was sure at this point whether those were invincible or not, but I have a feeling we're about to find out. Oh no, I've seen, yeah, there is a health bar. So trying to cut off a couple of the units around the back. I've got my hussars there on the wings waiting to charge in. One of the issues that we were constantly dealing with was Chaos Hounds just attacking along the back line, and that's exactly who the Hussars are facing off against now. So here we go. You can see the Sarsgaard standing in the front line, holding that position. We've got the tower there in the distance and one kind of to the right of the camera, blasting away at our opponents. The Tsarina doing some spells, and then we've got the Hussars winning their fights on the flank, and then hopefully, I remember, if you watch my channel, you know that I am a magnificent cavalry commander, and the cavalry are absolutely going to be used, the absolute apex of how cavalry are used. Actually, I think I don't do half bad with the cavalry in this fight. So the barricade is still holding off like half of their army. We're facing off against the other half directly there on the slope, but we have a really nice defensive position. Like this really lets more defensive-minded players shine. And then when you go on the offensive to take on the next control point, then you obviously have to think a bit more aggressively. So I have to say, I did actually, and I can't believe I'm saying this, quite like the Winged Hussars. They have a really strong charge, which can be bolstered by Tsarina Katarina's second spell, which is a spell that increases charge damage dealt. It might also... Oh, there goes the barricade. So now I've realised, yeah, that thing can break. They're now attacking the Tsarina herself, and we might be in a bit of trouble. The archers there at the back, pretty well protected. They got a good spot. We did leave a couple of troops on the right-hand side, and you can see, I think one of those archers at least was on a platform. But I basically used platforms on one side and then blockers on the other, kind of hoping that I could channel enemies through a single area, but unfortunately I couldn't. And there we got some more Chaos Hounds coming in from behind. At this point, I don't think I realised that they were just going to continue coming in and coming in and coming in. But we've almost finished this wave, and then the fires should fall, and we should be able to move on again after spending a little bit of time replenishing our forces, of course. So while we're talking about magic, Tsarina's third spell is a wind spell, so just like most of the other laws have a wind attack, she also does. I don't think there's anything particularly special to say about it, except it being ice. It will, I think, slow enemies when it's hit. And there you can see I'm discovering the insta-heal, so starting to heal up a couple of the hussars to make sure that I have my special unit ready. And with that, the epic Firegate has now fallen. We have a new objective, capture the Icon of Blood, with probably one of the most impressive centerpieces of any game yet, like just this flaming skull oozing blood. Looks kind of cool. And actually, that is another thing I have not really mentioned, is the graphics of this are phenomenal. I am really impressed. I don't know the specs of the machines we were playing this on. As I said, this was a remote digital event. Basically, we used remote desktop software to take over one of their computers wherever they were set up, and then they were recording the footage on their end. So there was no issues like transferring massive amounts of data over distances. We weren't streaming it or anything like that. It was actually a really fancy event, like because of COVID and coronavirus and everything, like making such things a thing. Usually we would kind of expect to meet up with the developers. We would be sat in like effectively a large office or LAN cafe type thing, and we would all be playing the game together, asking questions, stuff like that. We did have a Discord call. That audio is not captured here, but we're constantly communicating with a small group of other players. So there were 4 of us in the group that I was in, and then also one of the developers. Was he a developer? No, I don't think he was a developer. I think he was one of the like events people, but they had a direct line to the developers, so we could swap information and ask questions and things like that. So we are still dealing with the Chaos Hounds there in the back line. We're starting to try to promote some new troops, and in fact we've just recruited a couple, so the guys just coming in. Those are Kossars with spears. So the 3 archer units I have, those are just regular archers. The Kossars with spears are those units, but with spears, which means they have good defense against large targets. They kind of function a little bit more like High Elves. High Elven Sea Guard, except not as tanky. Not nearly as tanky at all. And also they don't have shields. So at the front line, I've got a couple of units ready to fight back again, because I wasn't sure if this position would come under constant attack. It does, but not from the direction I expect at this point. And then we're kind of looking out ahead to say, alright, so what do we need to do now? So we've got a nice front line, we've got the archers, we've got the Zargard, and then behind, protecting the capture point mainly at the moment, we've got the Tsarina, we've got the Hussars, and then we've got the new Kossar spear units. The other thing which I should point out is to the left of the supplies, there are 3 icons. So you've got the green one, which is the point that I've already captured, and then 2 red ones. At the start of the battle, your army is under some fairly hefty debuffs, and as you take the capture points, those debuffs become buffs. So as you get further through, your armies get stronger, but so do your enemies. Or rather, they become more numerous. So I think at the moment we're just kind of spending a little bit of time rebuilding our forces, getting some more supplies. You get a very, very slow trickle of supply from just holding positions. You get a lot more of it when you're actually attacking. Was that another Heart of Winter? Yeah, that was. So I was a bit worried about the number of Chaos Hounds attacking us there, that I used Tsarina Katarina's ult to just obliterate our opponents, and it really, really does. Like, unfortunately at the end of this battle, I didn't realise how you could like see the stats of your units. Yeah, you can see it individually, but there's like a continue battle, end battle button, and the continue actually meant go to the end stats. So I don't have it for this one, but I did a total of 2.5 battles, and in the second one I did check it out, and Tsarina Katarina got like 600 kills or something absolutely ludicrous like that because of how powerful that spell is. Okay, so we just brought in 3 new units, and these are probably my favourite unit. These are the Streltsy, who are kind of Kislev's secret weapon. Actually, no, they have a lot of secret weapons. But these guys are dwarf worthy. They are effectively muskaxes. They are musketeers who turn their muskets around, and the other end is a battle axe. So instead of, you know, having the what's it called, shoulder thingy bit, stock, instead of the stock, it's an axe. They are really, really good. They're handgunners, so they have the same issues with elevation, not being able to shoot over the heads of their allies, things like that. So positioning, really important, and I definitely don't do justice to their positioning in this. But unlike most handgunners, they're actually pretty good in a scrap. They have decent damage output because they just turn their guns around, and now they're a two-handed axe soldier. And they have decent combat stats to go with that. Really interesting unit, actually, like a hybrid gunner. The only other hybrid gunner type that I can think of would be the Free Company. So I think now we are finally starting to think, maybe we should move. Nope, I'm doing some healing. Yep, okay. Doing a bit of due diligence, making sure that all of our troops are top strength, especially the Zargard, because they definitely take the brunt of the combat here. And I have to say, Zargard kind of have stats similar to greatswords, but with a shield, which really makes them very, very tanky. I like Zargard. I don't know what level they are, so that's one thing that this didn't do a great job of showing off, is like which of these units are elite, which of these are like bog standard, which of these can I get in a level 1 barracks, which ones I can't. Because I can't imagine that Zargard are like swordsmen, even though they very much have a function similar to swordsmen. But in that case, what is our basic close combat frontline unit? I'm not sure. Okay, so here we're starting to look at some of the other barricade Nope, we're not. I think we're trying to work out if we can heal the barricade or not. I don't think I ever worked out if there was a way of doing it. No, I'm pretty sure I didn't. So the Streltsy there, they are standing on a platform. So that's given them the extra range. I don't know if it gives them any close combat defenses. Even though this seems like a bit of a quiet moment, there was so much going on. Everything was so new that I was kind of really flustered at this point, going, what am I doing? So I think there we're switching out the blocker for something else. We're preparing ourselves for the push forwards. Kind of realised at this point that we're not being attacked from the north anymore, just the south. So one thing I should mention is the enemy can absolutely retake the capture points from behind you. So you do need to leave a garrison. Those towers, once you've bought them, are not completely useless. They continue to remain very, very useful. And actually in my second battle I make a much heavier use of those towers, and I effectively immediately upgrade them all to top tier. Yeah, so armies are pushing forwards. I think I've left the Streltsy behind defending. Then I'm pushing forwards with the archers and the swordsmen. One other thing I should mention is just like you can heal units' health, you can also replenish ammunition. or you can send them back to the portal and then replenish them that way. There is a rehiring cost, but I don't know how the difference is between spending for the healing and the rehire because they've replenished. Didn't have time to work that out. That's something which I'm sure we'll work out when we have this for realsies. So from what I understand, this battle that we're fighting now is the Brass Keep, which, if memory serves, is a Chaos-owned settlement, or a neutral settlement perhaps, right in the middle of the Empire. So that's going to be kind of scary if you're playing as the Empire. And here we're seeing Kislev attacking it. I think this is the Brass Keep. I think that's where it is. I can't pretend to be a Warhammer master when it comes to the lore, but I seem to remember that being there. Ah, here we go. Starting to look at some of the upgrades. They're kind of pricey, which is why I don't overdo it. But I do upgrade all the Sargard armor because, again, they're tanks. That's the position in which I'm using them. And then once we've taken out this second capture point, we will unlock a couple of new units, which really starts to flesh out the Kislev roster. Because at the moment, it feels like it's fairly basic infantry, except... Nah, that's totally a lie. The Sargard and the Streltsy do not feel like basic infantry at all. The Kossars probably are. In fact, I wonder if the Kossars and the Kossars with spears are just their basic unit, because they did feel rather weaker than Sargard, Hussars, and Streltsy. Yeah, this is where they snuck behind my Streltsy, snuck right past the archers, and kind of got annoying. So, unfortunately, the defensive structures in this have the same problem that Warhammer 1 and 2 do, where you have a unit, it faces one way, it will not face another way, which is really unfortunate. But the very fact that there are so many constructible items and the way that they've kind of implemented this battle really gives me some hope that they've redone and changed how sieges work.
Beyond the portal wait Kislev's greatest defenders, ready to fight. Use the fresh supplies to summon them. Construct more towers and barricades to help the defense.
So, let's talk a little bit more about why I think they are redoing sieges. First of all, the sheer amount of time that Warhammer 3 has been in development. The gap between Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2 was incredibly short. It was like 6 months or something like that. Whereas the gap between Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 3 has been something like 3 years. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but I believe it's something like that. Now, I do know from my own work in development that one of the slowest things to create are maps. They are huge, there is a lot of assets that go into them, and they take a lot of time. Therefore, one of the reasons I think that Warhammer 3 has taken so long to create is because they've been working on new battle maps. What kind of battle maps would they have needed the most of? Sieges. At least that's what I'm hoping. I really do hope that they have changed the way that sieges work. The other piece of evidence, if you like, that I would like to offer up here are the barricades. So Attila, Total War 3 Kingdoms, they all have barricades. They're fairly simple. Although actually 3 Kingdoms does have deployable battlefield items. You can put barricades, you can put oil, and you can put towers. And this seems to be an evolution of that system. And I would really like to think that they're making use of this creatable defensive systems in sieges. Especially because they have the assets for it. Because... I don't know if they would necessarily use suppliers. I suspect the suppliers are unique to this, but they've definitely created new obstacles and new items that could feasibly be used in those sieges. And also, Warhammer 1 and 2 are pretty much masterpieces. Those are really, really strong games. There was only really one area where they fell down, and that was sieges. They just weren't that good. And that seems to be a fairly universal critique of those games. So I'm very much hoping that they have changed that. Okay, so we have now taken over the second area, and you can see that we are getting a couple of new units, including Little Grom. I thought when I deployed it, because the way it's set up, it's a mortar. It's not, it's a cannon. So you will see me using this thing completely wrongly throughout the entire battle, where I just kind of park it at the back and expect it to shoot over people's heads. But Little Grom is an artillery piece that Kislev have. It's relatively quick for an artillery piece, though not as quick as something you'll be seeing on Chaos' side soon enough. I'm kind of sorry that I don't make more use of them. They do have a huge range. You can pour in fire from a long way away, as you can see I'm trying to do here from the first victory point to the second. That's because I couldn't work out what the portal in the second base was. Like the first one, there's this big shiny red circle of death. Click on it, you can hire troops. In the second base I couldn't work out where it was until later. We will have access to a couple of new units as well, which we will take a look at the time. Did also hire another 2 units of Zargard, which I deploy somewhere. I should mention that unit numbers are limited, so when we unlocked the first area we got access to exactly 2 Kossars with spears, and I think also 2 horse archers, but for obvious reasons I didn't make use of them. That being said, I did later get told by my colleagues that were in the same group as I that the horse archers were really good and basically saved one of their runs. I didn't use them in this playthrough, but I did in the second. Right, so using magic again. So felt like I was under quite a bit of pressure. My frontliners were starting to buckle for the first time here, just because of the sheer weight of bad guys being sent against us. So kind of at this point realised, oh yeah, magic, I should probably use that. So while we are on the topic of magic, let's get back to our discussion on what the other spells are. So the 4th spell in the Law of Ice, I don't actually know what it does. It's a debuff of some kind. Oh, I'm looking at it. No, that's the wind. So this is the one where we're going to try and blast some people. Unfortunately, I didn't realise it has a really short range, unlike some of the other winds. So the Tsarina really needs to get close. The Heart of Winter is quite a long range, and also a massive area of effect, but it's quite expensive. Another thing I should mention is clearly the magic UI has changed. I think that's just showing like the total winds of magic and then the amount that you have, so it's like the total charge and then the amount you're using. I didn't have much time to explore that because I was just so busy focused on other things, but I think that's basically what that's saying. So the 4th spell was the debuff. The 5th spell, I honestly have no idea what it is. Wow, I'm doing such a good job showing this stuff off. And then the 6th one is the Heart of Winter, which, like I said, is a big old area of effect, mass damage dealing spell. We do think, and this is conjecture, that the enemies that we're fighting at the moment are weakened, so they don't have as many hit points as the Chaos armies actually would in the regular campaign. That's just to kind of bring to life this whole wave after wave after wave, facing off against hordes and hordes of enemies, which is part of the reason we suspect that the spells seemed so overpowered, because they were. Their power level wasn't reduced, and especially for something like Heart of Winter, where it just has a really big area of effect, it's going to kill a lot of stuff.
Follow the bear! One final push to the boiling moat! We must seize the icon of torment and tempt Khord's gatekeeper from his lair!
And there we had it. The very first look at the Bloodthirster, one of the most iconic units in the Khorne roster. Though I should say, that's not even the big bad. Oh, no. Things are about to get a lot worse for the poor Tsarina Katerina here. And you can tell I'm already a bit nervous because I actually paused the game. I don't think I paused the game up until this point. Up until here, I was just kind of like letting it go, running with it. But here I was like, right, I'm in trouble. Still getting absolutely hammered in the back lines. Middle lines are holding, but it seems like a bit of a gap. And also, I've just gained a couple of new units. So those are Ice Guards. Those are some deadly girls who carry glaives and longbows. They are kind of similar to Wood Elves. That they have a really, really good ranged attacks. They are magical damage. They're very quick. I can't remember if they're stealth. I think they might be. And then they carry glaives, which are polearms. They're armor-piercing and anti-large. They're very, very good. Kind of squishy if you do leave them in extended combat, but they are strong. And I believe that I was just using them to defend with... Or was that in the second game? I don't remember.
Bring them down! Moving!
So yeah. This actually gives us a good... Oh, there we go. Trying to get them into a good position. I think I kind of forgot that they were ranged, so I'm using them close combat. Rear charges, though. Oh, right, because I'm trying to save the regular archers, because they broke through my front line already. This does give us a bit of time to talk about what Chaos is actually throwing us here. So we have seen a couple of different units. So most obviously, the Chaos Warhounds, those were the beasts that were fighting at the start of the battle. They were a constant thorn in our side at the back, and in fact where we're fighting right now, this is our back line, because the vast majority of troops are on the front. And I kind of realised that they'd broken through my lines. The Streltsty had taken a bunch of damage, partially because of how restrictive their angle of fire was, because of the platforms. I really do hope they change that in the future. Like, if you're up on a platform, let them shoot in any direction. So Chaos Warhounds, then we also have the Bloodletters of Khorne. Those are the demon guys that carry flaming swords. They are pretty obvious when they are around. I'm kind of looking around seeing if we see any. Those flying guys, those are Chaos Furies. They started to appear like mid to late during this, and they were, I think, the only unit that could actually hit the towers. So Chaos didn't seem to have any ranged units. No, that's not true. They have one ranged unit. But the Furies would attack the towers and did a fair bit of damage to me again in the second game. In the first one I left more troops on my back line. As you can see, I'm kind of setting them up right now to do that. Then we've got the Bloodthirster, which is the flyboy that we saw and I think we've already killed. Oh no, actually the majority of my troops are on the back line. I just realised, no, we're looking at the middle at the moment. And here we go, we're taking a look at some other units. We've got another little Grom, because I like artillery. Like, usually I play very defensively. Heavy artillery presence, heavy ranged presence, and then a very, very solid front line. We're also recruiting more Zargard. Was that Zargard? Yes, that was just more Zargard. I think that was re-recruiting them. I think they died, or I'd sent them back. Yes, this is re-recruiting them. They've already got experience. So clearly some of my front line had buckled ever so slightly. And now we are building some more. And I did just realise that there is actually another character there in the hotbar. And that is the Patriarch. That is one of the Kislev heroes. The only other one that we have seen so far. And the Patriarch is kind of Kislev's warrior priest, though I have to say, actually a bit more useful, because one, he can actually heal, which comes in very handy in this mode, and two, he's actually kind of tough. I think he does have a second ability other than heal, but I cannot offhand remember what it is. Unfortunately, that is kind of one of the realities of having all of this pre-recorded. And then there's like a a week break or so between the footage being recorded and then myself doing the voiceover. Is a lot of things aren't synced up, so I have no control of the camera. I can't actually see what is going on at the moment. And two, I can't like zoom in and check out stats for a second time. I'm entirely reliant on what I have seen, what information I've gathered from watching this before I actually do the voiceover. Anyway, we are in the process of sorting out troops so that we maintain defences on the south, and then we are preparing our soldiers, getting our formation sorted effectively for pushing north to go for that final point defended by the Bloodthirster. And what a hell of a fight that is going to be. We've completed 2 of the objectives, we just have the final one left.
Kislev sends us forth!
And here we go. The advance has been called. The troops are on the way. We're leaving a couple of soldiers behind to defend the mid-ground, and then basically sending off the entire left flank there to go and attack. Meanwhile, we are under very heavy attack on the southern front. This is something you have to keep on checking back on just to make sure that your troops here are standing. I do try a slightly different formation in my second game, where I basically keep the archers and the spearmen, basically the Kossar units, back and have them in just a very narrow formation around the flag itself. I actually think that I do better this time around, although it is more intensive in terms of the troops that I have to leave to defend, especially because this uses the Ice Guards, which are a really good unit, and I feel like they were kind of wasted almost just defending this area. But in my second game I did actually lose the background region, whereas in this one I think I held on to everything. So it's just kind of interesting. The very nature of this map means you can try it a number of different ways, a number of different styles.
Tsarina, I claim the icon of torment! The demon will come! Use the last of our supplies to ready our defenses! Raise towers! Raise barricades! And summon forth the greatest of the motherland's champions!
The greatest of the motherland champions.
They move against us once more!
You're about to see some really, really high-end, really, really cool units. Because here we go, this is the final wave, the major attack. And it is going to be really bloody, I can tell you that right now. Looking at the list of units, I am now noticing that we hired a unit of cavalry. There we go, the Griffin Legion. They are kind of the knights errant to the hussars being knights of the realm. The Griffin Legion, I think, are a little bit tougher. They're more of a melee cavalry as opposed to a shock cavalry, if we're using Total War 3 Kingdom designations. They are anti-infantry. They have more of a staying power than the hussars do. And using the two in combination is actually pretty good, because you can basically use the Griffin Legion to tie enemies down and then rear charge them with the hussars and just keep on like switching them around that way. And the other thing which I will mention about the Patriarch is he is mounted on a bear. So keeping the Patriarch with the cavalry and then having him basically pop those heals during opportune moments turned out to be quite potent. I think his other ability, actually thinking about it, might have been a charge bonus. Like there was another reason I had him with the cavalry, and I think that might have well have been it. So here we have just paused the action for a moment as I'm trying to build up my defences. We've turned the Grom cannon around to help defend the rear zone, while also shifting a couple of reinforcements forwards, kind of noticing just how large this last wave is going to be. And I haven't really done much of my due diligence to organise my troops very well. So we're using the cavalry to basically protect that right flank, while I use the infantry to hold the centre. Meanwhile, the Bloodthirster has entered the fray, flying over the top of the initial defenders and then sweeping down to strike at the Tsarguard. And I'm kind of regretting that I didn't zoom in a bit, but you got to realise that you never have quite as much time as with hindsight you probably do. The enemies are coming in thick and fast, and while you can pause, I was also on a bit of a timer for myself because this was a time limited event and I didn't really know like how long it would take to complete one of these scenarios. So we can see that the demons just are coming, and they keep on coming, they keep on coming. Like the first two waves weren't too bad. Took a little bit of active duty to kind of throw back, but this third one just ramps everything to maximum, and you can really also see the supply just flowing in as we rack up those kills. And here we go, we're spending a little bit of extra time microing things. We're throwing more of the cavalry forces forwards, realizing that yeah, we probably do need extra reinforcements to hold on to this position and throw back the forces of chaos. And there we go, throwing in another Heart of Winter against a large cluster. Could probably have used it a little bit better there on the left, but I have a lot of faith in the Tsarguard. They are that tough that they should be able to hold out. And on the right, that was mostly my cavalry. And while they're initially devastating, they just don't have the staying power. So here we go, starting to recruit a couple of extra soldiers, going for Sargard and Kossars. Just trying to throw in some extra troops. Thankfully, because we've already captured the third point, we have access to the portal, and we can readily keep on bringing in additional forces. I should probably have been a bit more aggressive about what troops I was going to bring in. I don't think I'd realised just how much supply I was generating at this point, because we're pretty wealthy, and we could probably have done with some reinforcements. Managing reinforcements I definitely improved on in the second game, as I kind of had a better understanding of what exactly was involved. So here we go, starting to look at some of the other units and bringing in... What are we going to choose? Are we actually choosing anything? Okay, we're thinking about doing some upgrades. No. That wasn't Sargard. I think I'm just admiring the surroundings. Like, okay, yeah, the graphics are pretty good. And then probably looking backwards going, oh, yeah, they're still attacking back here. But we're doing a pretty good job holding that position, I have to say, although those Chaos Hounds clearly trying to sneak around the side of our defenders there, looking back over the main field. Wondering if I need any extra troops. As it turned out, that middle tower was vital, because it can reach the third victory point. So it was actually laying down a lot of fire throughout this entire thing. And I think here I'm trying to upgrade some more of the defenses and basically just bring in some more firepower, which again should probably have used this time to access a couple more soldiers than I actually have been here. I think I was also a little bit concerned about, for example, that Patriarch going down rather quickly. And probably thinking, you know what, I should be saving supplies to replenish the units I already have because they have experience. And that experience can really start to accrue. And I think you do, if a full unit dies, I think you lose the experience. But if you send them back through the portal to replenish, they maintain that experience. Again, I really, really wish I knew what the difference between the heal and the send back was in terms of cost. I think I did look into that during the second battle, maybe even the third battle, I just don't remember. Okay, kind of realising that my infantry is in a bit of trouble. Cavalry fighting a bit of a hit and run. And there we go, we got some of the Ice Guard with their glaives and their magic bows standing in the centre, laying down some smack. Moving Serena over to the other side, and you'll see that she's really low on health. I tried to use her to tank the Bloodthirster for a while. Didn't work too well. Like, at all. As it turns out, she actually has, like, no armour. Something I hadn't noticed when I was playing. She is very much a mage. And she's got a big sword. She kind of looked like she could fight. She can cast. That's her main thing. Okay, here we go. We are bringing in one of the big boys. This is the Elemental Bear, which is very much the ultimate unit for Kislev. It is probably, no, certainly the tankiest of the top tier units. It has a crazy amount of defenses. It is unbreakable. It causes terror and has a frankly astonishing amount of armor and I think probably physical resistance. That thing goes toe to toe with like the entire army at one point and doesn't die. Spoilers. The other benefit, of course, in this mode is the fact you can heal them. I think I was pairing it up with the Patriarch at one point. I think the Patriarch ran off the map, or I sent him through the portal. I don't think he actually died. I think the only units that fully died in this were some of the Zargard, just because I was demanding rather a lot of them. And here I'm wondering, can I send more troops to go fight the big waves? Or do I need to keep troops back here? And yeah, it's mostly the Streltsy. I mean, I don't think it was a bad decision leaving the gunners behind, because one... Oh yeah, I spawned the cavalry in the wrong place.
Kharn's gatekeeper shows himself at last! Warriors of Kislev, prepare for the your lives! Our foes threaten the motherland anew!
And you thought that was the final wave. Oh, no, 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 no. This is when things get serious. You remember the bloodthirster that I pointed out earlier and said that was the little bad? Meet the big bad, an exalted bloodthirster. And yeah, I'm not going to spoil things. I'm not going to spoil things. Just bear in mind, like, our army's back here, battered, but we're in a decent position. We've managed to arrange our formations again. We brought in a couple more cavalry to help in the back line. I didn't actually spawn them in the wrong place. That was where I intended them, because I was going to use them against the Chaos Hounds. I'm belatedly remembering what was going through my mind during this. I was like, okay, I've got my flanks guarded, and Bloodthirster's like, you know what? I can fly. He just flies straight over the top. Goes straight for the archers. Oh dear. Ever so slight panic, and you can see there he's a level 10. I think it's showing the hero levels. So he's basically a level 10 hero versus my level 1s. And he immediately goes for the Tsarina. So the Tsarina, who'd already been trying to go one-on-one against a Bloodthirster, one hit, like a third of her health, just in one go. And I'm probably just realising just how much damage she is taking at the moment and thinking, maybe I should withdraw. And then I've got every single archer on the battlefield going for her. And there we go, we have summoned a second elemental bear into the fray. And then we're going to use the tankiest of the tanks to tank. Please, please, please tank this thing, because it just does so much damage. Meanwhile, the demons, of course, continue to flood in. I should mention at this point that most of the Chaos units are actually Exalted, which is basically the upgraded, beefier version of the regular. I don't know what in the main campaign will cause them to be Exalted. I haven't seen anything of the main campaign. This is purely this one scenario. But yeah, they're quite a lot stronger. This is also, I think, the first wave where we are seeing Chaos Warriors coming in. Berserkers of Khorne, Warriors of Khorne, Cornflakes. I don't remember exactly what they're called, but they're like one of the most devastating melee units, especially because they're heavily armoured. Unlike the other Khorne units, like the Bloodletters, I don't think are particularly heavily armoured, so you can kill them pretty quickly. Not so much for the Berserkers. And you can see there my right flank is just completely collapsing. And then I'm going back to these guys thinking, oh yes, the cavalry. The cavalry that I brought in. Yeah, maybe I need them up on the other end. Are they going to arrive in time, though? That is the question. They have to go a long way. But this is very much when you can start to queue up Winged Hussars song by Sabaton. Get it ready. I'm not going to do it myself because of copyright reasons, but if you have it on Spotify, if you have it on YouTube, you might well need it. I think this is probably one of the coolest moments of this campaign. I just really wish this was an actual replay so I could zoom in and check out the action myself. So starting to panic a little bit, thinking, okay, I need to pull more of my defensive forces back, so I'm going to invest more heavily in the defenses themselves to see if I can hold out there. Meanwhile, the Exalted Bloodthirster, mostly dead at this point, just because of the sheer amount of firepower I've been pouring into him. But my right flank completely gone, my left flank mostly gone, and we're very much like trying to cling on in the centre. And if my left flank gives way, then they'll be at my archers. Oh, and they're in the background. Right at the back, you can see one of the Chaos Cannon units. I don't remember what it's called, but one of my colleagues was basically describing it as like a Chaos Biker. It's like a motorbike with a cannon on the front. Remarkably fast. Like, it's a really, really quick artillery piece that can like angle itself into better positions very, very fast. And I think it fires skulls or something like that. Unfortunately, I didn't zoom in too much because they're busy at this point. And there we go, one of the bears looks like it's about to go down, and this is where the unbreakable trait really came into itself. So I just paid for a couple of supplies to basically have him heal himself while he's in the fray. And he's unbreakable, so he ain't going to run. He's just going to sit there and keep on tanking. Meanwhile, here comes the cavalry, but the question is, are they going to be in time? Here they come. And then the winged hussars arrived. So glad that I zoomed in a bit for that. Didn't quite get the cinematic mode loaded up. But what a moment. Like, it really did feel like we were losing there in the center, and then suddenly on the horizon, the cavalry. And they really allowed me to bolster the center, rearrange my defenses and get back into the fight. Here we go, recruiting a couple more troops in the middle. Bringing in some reinforcements in the middle. I think that Tsarina did actually go down. I didn't remember that happening, but apparently it did. We're now hurriedly trying to get more troops into the end, because we've actually lost the victory point. They had so many troops in that center that we lost it. So we're backing off a little bit. The Exalted Bloodthirster, still alive. Still alive, even after all of that. Meanwhile, the Elemental Bear, one of them's still up. The other one I think did go down, or maybe I sent him back for... No, he probably went down. Because my units started to drop like flies at this point. Like, things were looking really bad. I genuinely was starting to think, maybe this isn't quite going to plan. On this first attempt, the game might actually be beating us.
Taking point! To battle!
Throwing the cavalry in for one final charge, finding some of the infantry having withdrawn. See that heroic central tower just blasting away.
Kislev moving! Attack, comrade!
And there we go. I think the Exalted Bloodthirster is about to go down. He's so near death. So near death.
Obey the orthodoxy!
And somewhere along the way, I did manage to spend virtually all of my supplies. So this is it. This is what we got. This is what we need to use to try and win this.
Comrades of the bear! For the motherland! Sargai!
Bloodthirster chasing after some of my fleeing units. My archers chasing after the Bloodthirster. There goes the first victory point, completely overrun in the meantime by all of the Chaos Hounds and Chaos Furies. I didn't remember it was this bad. Wow. There we go, Bloodthirster turning around, coming back again.
Sargai!
The Elemental Bear fighting gamely onwards. Yeah, it looks like most of my Strelsteed died at some point. He's kind of just left down to the cavalry. It's like all I've got left at this stage. 2% of this wave is left. 2%! Plus all of the constant attacks, which don't count towards the wave numbers. 1%! 1%! Still not dead! Oh, he's running! He's running! He's running! Oh, maybe we've got this! Maybe! Let's start to spend some of our supply to rebuild some of our units. Bring back some of the cavalry. Bring in the Grom Cannon. And there we go! He died! We finally shot him down.
comrades of the bear!
My brave Kislevites, we stand triumphant. But Khorne is not the only dark god with a realm in this accursed place. The battle is won, but the war goes on. Come. We must continue our search for what is lost.
And that's it for the battle itself. So now we just have a couple of more cinematic shots to try and show off the graphics of this game. Unfortunately, my camera control isn't the greatest, so sorry about the kind of jerky movements. This is not the type of footage I'm used to taking, but I did my best. So here we've got a couple of the Kossars with bows leading up to the Sarsgaard, looking resplendent in their heavy armor with their giant shields. Heading over to the Tsarina herself. Showing off a little bit there for the camera. Moving over to the Hussars. Now this was done live, so the Hussars are currently fighting for their lives. Completely forgotten, as they usually are in my battles. And over to this side as well, and this is giving us a good look at the bloodletters of Khorne as they get butchered by the Hussars. And a bit more of a quiet moment to look around. And now we started to move our armies. Cavalry dashing through the lines of the foot sloggers coming along behind. Sarsgaard keeping the troops secure. The Tsarina, probably my favourite moving animation. Unfortunately I caught this on the uphill slope, so it glitches out a little bit. But yeah, she's surfing an ice cube right now. That's 100% what she is doing. And it's hilarious to see. And now we move over to the other flank. We're awaiting some of the bad guys to come through the portals. You can see the tower here shooting away, looking a bit more like a haunted structure than I initially believed. Moving over to the portals, and there we can see a couple more of the bloodletters of Khorne up close. Coming up behind them, we've got a couple more of the Berserkers of Khorne. I can't actually remember what those guys are called, and it's really bugging me. I don't think they're just Chaos Warriors, they're like the Khorne special unit, which I'm definitely just going to call Cornflakes. So there we have the Cornflakes coming alongside the Bloodletters. Hordes and hordes and hordes of them marching to their death. Or to slaughter. But mostly death. And I was sure to upgrade a couple of the towers to their different ammunition types so we can see the magical attacks striking through there. Arrows on the other side. Now switching back to the Horse Archers, which you have not seen much of. And here we have them, the stars of the show. A unit worthy of the dwarves themselves. It is, of course, the Streltsy. And here we have the Kossars with spears, lining up, sighting up on some enemies and letting loose. A couple more Horse Archers, and then the Streltsy doing what they do. Into the melee itself. Now the lay of the terrain here was messing with the camera angle, so I couldn't get as much of a zoom in as I'd liked. That's why I keep on dancing around the edges. Anyway, that is unfortunately the end of what I've got to show you for now. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, be sure to hit that subscribe button to get notifications of when I go live again in the future. I do mostly stream over at twitch.tv/Mordred Viking, and I'd love to see you there for future Total War Warhammer 3 content.